Hey beautifuls, welcome. This is the Crystalline Crown Chakra journey, the Crystalline journey, and we're at the Crown Chakra. This is the start of our beautiful 9-week journey, or it might turn into longer. I will know as we move along. The Crown Chakra is what we are talking about today. So welcome to this very transformational, very deep journey as we go through all of the chakras over the next few weeks and deep diving into the consciousness. We're activating not just the consciousness but the crystalline structure, and I want to talk about more about that because this is actually the first time that I've actually done the crystalline chakra journey. It's always just been the chakra journey, and then as we've hit 2020, it's like, no, now we're doing the crystalline chakra journey. So this is going to be interesting, what we activate and shift and how that is going to contribute to the world over the next few weeks. So hey beautifuls, welcome. Hi Danny. All right, let me share this and I will be super present with you guys. I'm a little bit excited to see what streams through for the crystalline activations. They will be available over the coming days for you if you choose to purchase the crystalline activations. Otherwise, the chakra journey over the next few weeks is completely free, of course. Hey Olivia, hey Stara, hey Tammy, hi beautifuls, hi Sean. All right, let me go and share this. So I'm sitting outside, obviously, and I trust that you'll be able to tell me if it, I don't know, there was wind like picking up before, and I'm like, it's gonna be fine, it's gonna be fine. So let me have a look here. We've got our Monday meditation coming up as well soon. Hi Wendy. All right, awesome to have you all here. Yay, it's letting me share. Yay, it worked really fast. It worked really fast because the crown likes to act fast. Let's talk about that. Hey Tammy, hey Alana. All right, awesome. Super love to have you guys here. This is great. Okay, we are done. Well, done sharing so I can be present with you and prepare. So here we are at the crown, yeah, and I've got my notes here and I've got my bits and pieces, so I make sure that I cover everything that we're going to talk about today. So this thing, oh yeah, I've got the camera back to front. I'm like, what is this? What is this cord? How interesting. So at the crown chakra, yeah, obviously, okay, let me talk about this for a second. So how this is going to work. Obviously, I will be talking about the crown chakra, how that activates, how it's connected to our body, how that works in your life. Now, at any point in time, I want you guys to ask me any questions, just type away anything that comes through for you. Going to be talking about the crown and all of our chakras ultimately, about how it works in our own life, but then how that is also affecting the collective, what that's actually doing for humanity, and how that, you know, intertwines with our life, their life, and the bigger picture with that, yeah? So at any time, ask me questions about any of it that comes through. Hey Jeanette, hey Maria, beautiful to have you all here. Okay. I'm a little bit excited about the actual crystalline activations as well that I will be releasing in the coming days, or if you're watching the replay, they might already be out. But they are the 9 specific activations, and these are meditations, activations that I haven't ever released before. If you've done the third eye chakra crystalline activation, you'll get a taste of what the others are going to be like. So I'm a bit excited to release these to you guys as well, because that is like an extra if you want to really activate that. The consciousness will be activated through what we're talking about today. Hey Terry. So as I was sharing before, this is like, okay, let's act fast, right? At the crown chakra, it's obviously at the top of our head, yeah? And it opens like a flower, and by the way, when I talk about like, this is how your chakra is, and this is what it does, and blah, 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 that is a starting point. That is a guide, right? So when we talk about like, it opens like a flower, like it might not be that for you. It might be something else, and it might be a flower, like open energetically like a flower, and then it might change. And I want you to trust that for yourself, and trust what it shifts into, what it, you know, expands into. Maybe it's more, maybe it's like more open, or it might be different, like it might be an energy vortex, it might be something else. So really trust what it is for you, okay? Crown is associated with the color purple. Again, it could be purple, it could change, it could be something else. Trust what it is for you, right? So we've got the crown chakra, yeah, opening like a flower, and the light literally comes in. The sun comes out as I talk about it, right? The light comes in through our crown and comes down through our body. Now, if the crown is closed, right, if it's closed off, the light can't come in. Yeah, and so at the crown we see symptoms. I'm already getting warm, of course. We see symptoms at the crown of depression and suppression and pressed down, right? So if you're depressed, it's like you're closed in the crown and the light can't get in. So you're pushing, it's like, and the light wants to come in, so it's like almost pushing down, right? And it's pushing you down, but your closed crown is actually suppressing and pressing you down, okay? So at each of the chakras, automatically the other opposite is activated as well. So for example, at the crown chakra is deeply connected to the base chakra, because they're both at the top and the bottom of your chakra set, so to speak, right? Now, yes, we've got our soul star, we've got our earth star, and then there's the other star points, right? But for this series right now, we're talking about the 8 chakras, with the 9th being the integration, okay? So there's 9 weeks so far. I have a feeling there's more, but I feel like that will come towards the end of the 9 weeks. So stay tuned for that. So the crown, deeply connected to the base chakra. Okay, they're both at the top and the bottom of your body. So when we work on the crown, you're also working with the base. Now, when I say things happen fast, when you open your crown, or when you open to spirit, or when you open to the light, that light pouring in through your body can almost be too much. Okay, so if people are like really connected to spirit, to source, and like they're highly attuned in, really tapped in, but they're exhausted, burnt out, tired, it's almost like the light's too much. Now, when I say too much, what I mean is like you're not able to contain, your body doesn't have the capacity to hold that level of light, and so it literally streams through you, but straight out of you, and you're just like what I see it when it's the too much is that you're like this like sponge, I guess you could, you know, say, and you've literally like full of holes, and it literally is just like pouring straight out of you. So if you think of like containment, so not contraction and to in, when we look at containment, it's being able to hold that level of energy, being able to hold that level of light and utilize that level of light, rather than it streaming through and burning you out, because your physical body, your energetic body, your aura doesn't have the capacity to hold that level of light frequency, and so it comes straight in, straight out, and it's like it's burning, right? It's burning through you. Yeah. Hey, Sarah. So when we look at being able to let that amount of light in, it's not like, oh, it's too much, so I better close my crown. It's like, no, what are the ideas that you are receiving, right? Because the crown chakra is your claircognizance. That is your spiritual organ that is connected to your crown. And at your claircognizance, that is where you are receiving all the ideas. Yeah, obviously the brain comes in, ideas. Now, because it's deeply connected to the base chakra as well, when we're looking at the crown and the base chakra, there is usually huge paradigm shifts, big reality eye openers, right? Now, when we work with a particular chakra, the next chakra down is also activated. So it's interesting I even just use that terminology around the big eye openers, right? Why? Because the third eye chakra is automatically starting to be open and activated because we are connected to our crown. Hey Chelsea. Hi Chelsea and Seal. Hi. So the crown chakra is open, yeah? The base chakra is starting to be activated as well, and our third eye is starting to be activated. So when the crown moves fast, or it's like, you know, you're like, I've got too much light streaming through me, like, because I guarantee there's some people on this call that are very highly connected, that like super connected, highly claircognizance. You just know things. I don't know. I just knew that was going to happen, right? This is claircognizance talk. I just knew that was going to happen. Like, I don't know. I just know things, right? Like, you know it all. Like, I just knew that was going to happen. You didn't listen to me, and I just knew that was going to happen. Or, damn it, I knew that was going to happen. I didn't listen to myself, right? You ignored those thoughts. So when we're looking at being able to contain and hold a new frequency of light, because when we do open our claircognizance, when we open our crown chakra and we start to let the light in, right? The crown chakra is also where people have spiritual awakenings. Now, it's so interesting when we look at currently at the time of this recording, of the filming of this crown and the crystalline chakra journey that we are on now. This crown stuff, right? I was getting the message before I jumped in the live stream. I was like, it's the crown, right? We're opening to the light. We're letting the light in. Now, if we look at that in correlation to current global world galactic stuff right now, it's like ascension is here. We're coming out of the darkness, right? Now, what happens when we let the light in? Whole new paradigm shifts. The crown cracks open. It isn't nice. Spiritual awakenings are not usually nice. They might be for like, 5 minutes, and then it's like, woof. Why? Because it hits reality. Why? Because the light is bringing a whole new consciousness to your current situation, and you're like, this is a little bit confronting. Hey Leanne, hey Kelly. So when we look at letting the light in and we're like, you know what, this the whole new paradigm, hey Christina, whole new paradigm of light coming in is all these new ideas. All like, and when I say new paradigm, it's literally that, like a whole new brainwave of ideas, of concepts, of things you've never thought of before, new ideas, new reality shifts. Now, at the same time, they also might be things that you've always known, right? Now, every time you do this chakra journey, this crystalline chakra journey now, over the past few years, I've done it every year, right? And so now it's looking at, we might have known this stuff, but now it's starting to implement and ground in, right? So depending if this is your first year of doing the chakra journey or whether it's the 4th year of you doing your chakra journey, we literally have each of the chakras being activated, right? Now, as I said, like, you might get all these new ideas, and if you are burnt out and you are tired all the time, you might be highly connected, but you're not implementing those ideas that are going to support you to embody, activate, and hold in that container of your energetic field and your physical body, your chakra system, the whole, you know, your endocrine, like the nervous system, all of that is not able to hold that level of light frequency. And so it's going to tire you out. It's going to burn you out because it's just streaming through you, so connected, and you might be like highly claircognizant and receive all this amazing intuition. But if you're tired all the time, you're not embodying the light, right? It's like it will flow straight through you. It's a bit like, dam's not the right word. You know, like if a river is flowing, right? But it's like contained through the river sides, where if it's like this huge downpour, like it'll just like flood the sides, right? Which is kind of what happens when we're letting the light in, but we're not able to hold that capacity through our light body and our light frequency. Now you might be asking, well, how do we do that, Hannah? And I'm like, well, are you actually paying attention to the ideas that you're receiving? Or are you ignoring them and going, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Oh yeah, I need to do that. Oh yeah, that's a good idea, but you don't implement. right? Now, the thing that happens here when you're like, yeah, and this is where I'm at too, in a sense of letting, like, as I said before, with you might be getting all these ideas and you're like, oh, but I knew this stuff. Why didn't I act on it? Or why am I receiving the same messages over and over? Like, some people say to me when they get psychic readings, they're like, I always get this message. It's always the same message. And I'm like, so have you acted on that message? Are you going to like take action on the message? Because until you actually take action on the message you're receiving, nothing is going to shift. You will get the same thing all the time. It'll sit there. It'll be the same message or the same idea all the time. Or you will get the idea and you'll be like, oh yeah, that's a really good idea. I need to do that. And you don't act on it. And then you see other people doing it and you're like, hey, they copied me. It's like, no. Did you actually take action on that idea that you were given to your connection to source and implement it straight away, right? Fast. Or did you just put that on the back burner and you're like, oh yeah, I'll do that one day. Yeah, that's a good idea. But yeah, I'm just going to do this other stuff first, right? Because the thing here is that when we connect to source, or when we let in the light, when we have our spiritual awakening, we're all connecting to that same one infinite source, right? So let me just get my little diagrammy thing out. So we have our little person, right? Got our little person here. And up the top here, for example, this is, you know, just an example. This is where source is. Let's see. Source, God, universe, whatever you want to call it. Okay. So source is up the top here. Okay. And when we have a spiritual awakening, right? So we've got like all these people, and you can imagine, you know, this could be like multiplied by 7 billion people on the planet or something, right? All these people walking around, and source is up here, open and available for everyone, but only if you connect to it for some reason. And then at some point we have spiritual awakenings, and all of a sudden we are given access to this, right? And then we have these ideas come in, we're connected to the true source, so we're able to, you know, hold that in our body if we take action on those ideas, because those ideas that you are getting are coming from source, right? And so then the other piece here, as I said, if you're not acting on those ideas that you are receiving, especially if you're like, what is my next step? What am I blocked in? What is this? What is that, right? And you'll be getting the answers. But if you're not going to act on them and actually take, you know, like you'll get an idea and it might be really crazy and out there, or it might be something that you've known for so long and you're like, I know I need to do this and I just haven't done it yet. Like, right? And then you see other people doing it and you're like, hey, they copied me, right? Because all of a sudden this person's got that amazing idea, and then you're like, yeah, nah, I'm not going to do that today. I'll leave that for another day. And so basically that same idea is in this field up here, right? And then because you haven't taken it and acted on it, base chakra, which is our will, which is bringing things into physical manifestation, this idea transfers over here, and that person goes, oh yeah, acts on it straight away. They're like, okay, I'm moving everything out the road. This is coming first. Everything can wait. I'm doing this right now, right? And then you're like, hey, that was my idea, right? And you're like, actually, I didn't act on that. This is what this is, right? And so it's so important, right? When you are praying, asking for guidance, what's wrong with my life? How come nothing's shifting? Why am I doing this? Like, what, blah, 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 blah. Like, no, you've probably already been given the answer, and you're probably seeing other people acting on it, right? And their life is like flourishing. And then all of a sudden you're like, hey, and then you start going into, this is so important, right? So important, okay? Then you start going into, oh my goodness, now they're copying me. And now what starts to happen is you start to get more blocked off, right? It's probably the wrong color. Let's use this one. You're starting to get blocked off, okay? And you're like, so that where that idea originally came in from is now blocked off, because you're like, starting to drop. And what happens here is your vibration also drops. Okay, you are focusing on this person and you're like, do you know what? Like, this is what I was thinking of. Or, you know, and we start to like, we spiral down. Yeah, we start to spiral down. We feel shit about ourselves. We get jealous, resentful, because this person has actually acted on source. They're not focused on you. They're not worried about you. They're not worried about anybody. Why? Because they had freaking strong boundaries and they said, you know what? Everything can wait. The dishes can wait. That relationship can wait. Those people can wait because I've just received this brilliant idea and I need to act on it. Like, they know. What is it? Claircognizance? They know. They need to act on it and act on it fast. And they also contain it. They don't tell anyone about it. They don't talk about it. All they are doing is implementing it. Base chakra, remember I said the crown and the base chakra are deeply connected together, right? One at the top, one at the bottom, and we implement that, okay? So when we actually can channel this into our body, right? And this is again where that containment comes in, of being able to connect to source. And by the way, when you don't act on those ideas, right? When you don't act on those ideas straight away, what is alive for you? What is alive for you? What is alive? Follow that. Why? Why is it alive? Why is it alive? Because the fucking source is alive. Source is alive. This is where we get our energy from. And as soon as we get an idea and we do not act on it, what happens is we cut off that source. Ding. It's like this black vacuum. And in this energy world that we live in, what happens when there's a block and a black vacuum? Oh, this black stuff wants to come. It's like a magnet and it draws it in and it's like more. And then we're like, woof, we're really heavy. Right? You want to act on those ideas as soon as you do, and you don't tell a freaking person about it. You just show them. Right? It's one of like entrepreneurs' famous quotes or whatever, right? Like literally, you just show them. Don't speak. Don't use this. This base chakra, ears are deeply connected to your base chakra. You know that other saying, you got 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Use these. Base chakra is where we implement. Ears, heart, base, deeply connected, right? So when the jealousy and the resentment and the, you know, all of that, what are we also doing? We're focusing on this person, right? And then, and it's interesting, I used yellow. I know yellow is like a representation of source. If I could write with white, I would, right? But when we look at the jealousy, resentment, it spirals into not good enough at the solar plexus. I'm not good enough. I'm not, you know, like, oh, I'm not worthy enough. Oh, they've already done it, so what's the point if I should do it now? Like, and then we kind of still get in this spiral and we're still spiraling down, right? And so then when we look at, you know, like tapping into self-worth and feeling good enough and trusting yourself, okay, solar plexus is where we trust ourselves and our ideas. Just because, this is almost like recovery point now, right? Just because source gave you that idea and you didn't act on it, okay, and it went over to this person and they've gone and done everything that you thought, you were like, I was supposed to freaking do that, so now what am I supposed to do? And you're walking around in this, bleh, right? Just because that happened, it doesn't mean that that's not still sitting there for you. And you might be like, but they've already done it, so why should I even bother about it now, right? And the reason that you should still do it is because, and the thing is, I was just going to say, if it is still alive for you. Now, you might be like, but it's not, Hannah, okay? And you need to differentiate and discern, is it like, well, it's not alive for me because you're in this spiral of resentment and jealousy, or if you were to release that jealousy and resentment and maybe like kicking yourself because you knew that you should have acted on it. You knew. Why the fuck did I knew? I knew. That's your claircognizance. I knew I should have done that. I knew I should have pushed everything aside and made time for it, but I didn't, right? So instead of beating yourself up about it, if you were to release all that resentment, all that jealousy, all that beating yourself up, is it still alive for you, right? And if the answer is yes, you start doing it. Now, you might be like, oh, but then it's going to seem like I'm copying them. And I don't care, okay? Because what I want you to do is follow it. Because you might start implementing it again, okay? You might actually start it and you might actually go, you know what? This is the day I'm going to push everything aside. Everything can wait, right? And you actually start doing it. And what you might find is that it will evolve into something else unique, as you just said, Aya, for you. Unique for you, right? It might be still similar, but it's actually unique for you, right? And so when you actually follow it, it can actually transform into something even, it's not better than this, because I feel like it evolves past what you were originally going to do, that they're now doing, so to speak, and it evolves past that, right? And this whole journey of spiraling into resentment and everything was actually part of the journey to actually getting you to do the thing. And from now on, you do the thing straight away, because this whole experience is actually what you needed to shift you into that high vibration, to be able to hold source, to be able to act on it straight away so it never happens again. And then your whole life is completely different and you're like, oh, I'm so grateful for that experience, right? So when you get an idea, then it's like, then you've become this person in a way, because actually also what you were jealous of and resentful of was the way they just connected to source and acted on it. Whoops, this over here, acted on it and contained it and just brought it out. And now you've become that person. So it was actually more than just the idea and what they actually did. It was actually their deep connection to spirit, their trust in spirit, their ability to implement what the ideas that they're getting, the ability to push everything out the way and make that a high priority, right? Very crown chakra, acting on ideas, right? In a sense, you might have activated the other person, perhaps. Perhaps, and they have activated you as well. Yeah? So definitely that. Hey, Alina. Hi, Joy. Corey says, I love this. I've done this so many times. Right? You're so welcome. You've had that happen. Hey, Richard. So yeah, it's so important, right? So when we look at crown chakra, there can be a lot of resentment that starts moving out of your body right at the crown chakra. And like I said last week, there's a lot of like anger and all this. And that's when I first jumped on live stream and I'm like, what is this like cord? What is this cord? Like, you know, it was jumping out at me. Because when we are in a space of being resentful of other people, what actually is happening at the same time is, instead of us connecting to the true source and receiving energy and light and all that beautiful feelings and all that jazz, you start focusing on this person. So you're starting to not only like throw negative energy at that person, but you're also like sucking it, like a cord starts to form here. And so you're like trying to receive from this person what you can only receive from source in its truest sense. Do you know what I mean? And so, and that's, you know, and this person may or may not be affected by all the jealousy and resentful. Sometimes they can be, definitely. And this is where, you know, like words are really powerful and we're like bitching about them and, you know, gossiping or in our own mind or to other people, right? And this person can feel it, but if they're strong enough and because they're so connected to spirit and source, sometimes they're just not even affected by it because this is their protection. This is their protection, right? This is their protection. So that's why I got creative today. Yes, Selena, crown chakra, that's right. Yeah. So when we can remember our true source, and sometimes it's a big recalibration to actually like a process to disconnect from all those people. Sometimes we need to unfollow people and take some time to reconnect back to ourselves. Sometimes it takes a bit to actually recalibrate back to ourselves, back to our source, find our joy again, allow the light in, and be able to hold that capacity and action it, right? Now, that comes into also environmental awareness, right? So at the crown chakra, we're really looking at what is around me that's affecting me. Yeah. So of course we can get into a place of nothing affects me, and like that's, deep empowerment of body. So of course we can get into the place of nothing affects me, right? But when we've spiraled down this, it takes a little bit to get back to it. Yeah, it does take a bit to get back to this, and you need to honor the process and the journey about that. Okay. And that might mean opening up to receive help. Yeah. Whether that's help in your business, help with a spiritual mentor that can help just like, pull all that stuff out and pull all the cords out, and help plug back into the right place as the sun comes out, with like receiving help and letting the light in, because the crown chakra is about opening up to receive help. Because sometimes we might not have acted on this because we didn't feel supported. The crown chakra is all about feeling supported or not, okay? And we don't feel supported because we've closed to receive any help, okay? So here, when we are closed off, or we start to spiral down, or maybe again we didn't implement that in the first place because we've got all this other stuff going on, all these ideas streaming through, all this energy in our field, all these people around all the time, or all this like, oh my god, my life's so busy, like all the time, I got no time for myself, and I'm just like like the crown chakra is, of course, each chakra has a balance of masculine and feminine within it, right? But also at the crown, it is mainly a feminine chakra of receiving, okay? Now, obviously, the opposite extreme of that is closed, is a over masculine drive. I've got to do it all myself. I'm burning out. I'm doing it all myself, right? It's kind of like, you might be like, but Hannah, you said the streaming through was a burning out. It's like, yeah, because there's no boundaries there, right? Which is a masculine balance of not being too close or too open. A balanced masculine is the being able to balance and open and hold the structure properly, rather than the walls being too big and it's streaming through and there's so much energy going, and I don't have time for myself. I know what you're talking about, right? And so that idea does flick over to that person and it spiral down because maybe we thought that we couldn't do it on our own. Maybe we thought that we didn't have the resources to do it. Maybe we just made whatever excuse because we're just so busy and like, I don't know how to do anything else, right? But when we can channel that beautiful energy and implement those ideas we're getting, everything else is taken care of, right? Why? Because we're allowing this energy to be the resource. We're allowing this source energy to be and do what it's here to do, right? Through us. That resources, that fuels us, right? You might think, I don't have the energy to do that, or I'm too tired to do that, or whatever. It's like, yeah, because you're pushing that down more. Like all these ideas, all that source energy is trying to flood in, right? It is literally trying to flood into your brain, right? And if you're like, oh, no, I'm too busy, and we close that off, that energy is still trying to come in. And that is like, that's like trying to stop a river, right? Like, yeah, it's just kind of impossible, but we can try. We can hold the damn walls up for a bit, right? And then it's just all of a sudden going to be like, whoosh, and be too much, right? And then we're like, whoa, and we're still like in the like busyness of energy because now it's too much, like, you know? So finding that balance is about opening up to receive and opening and implementing the ideas as they come in. If you're getting the message to, you know, book in with a healer to clear all the gunk from your past, like you need to act on that. Whether you've got the money or not, you need to make the call. You need to reach out. You need to find out, right? Maybe it's getting a cleaner. Maybe it's like getting help in your business. Maybe it's getting someone to look after the kids. Like whatever that is so important that you take the step, even if you're like, Because what will happen is you'll get the idea and your mind will automatically go, oh, but I can't do that yet, or I can't blah, 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 or this reason why you can't, right? It's like an automatic thing our brain comes in. Don't ask me why, it just is, right? And so then we need to train our brain so the automatic response is to ask, how can I make that happen, right? And if you get the idea and you're like, but I don't know that next step, you're like, pick up the damn phone, send the damn email, like find out the next step, right? Because when you take that step, right, whether it's say finding out how much the nanny's gonna be for that weekend or something, right? When you take that step, yeah, that energy keeps flowing through. If you get the idea and you're like, oh yeah, I need to send that email, I need to do that, what happens is it kind of gets to here and then something else will bank up and something else will bank up, right? But when we can implement each idea as it comes, like send that email, ask that question, find out that thing, like whether you think you can do it or not is irrelevant to the point that when you take that step, the flow keeps coming in, right? The flow keeps coming in. And just like when I said to you, look, the light just shines on at that time. The flow keeps coming in when you take the step. Just like I said before, when, you know, like you start to implement that idea and you're like, oh, but they're already doing that thing, right? When you implement it, and I said, you know, but it will probably evolve into something else, right? Is usually what happens. Right? And you might be like sitting down at your computer, for example, and trying to do the page, and you're like, but this is the same as them now. It looks like I'm copying. Like if you can keep going, keep going and keep pushing through, something else will come, right? But until you actually look at that first thing, it's not going to come, right? So you might like, you know, send that email, find out how much that thing is, do that thing, right? And because you've done that, that's flowing through, you've implemented that, then the next idea can come in and you're like, oh, actually, I can do this thing instead. But if you didn't do that, that thing's still sitting up there. It hasn't come through yet. Do you see what I'm saying? It's like when you don't act on those ideas, the damn walls start building up, right? And everything becomes stagnant and we get heavy and it's like, I don't know, I got too much to do, right? Because all this is sitting there waiting to come through, right? Or it might be opposite. You'd be like, I'm so blocked. There's just nothing. I'm just like, why is there a block? Like, it's just not coming through. Like, I don't know, there's just nothing. And it's just like, what's the first thing? What is the thing that you haven't acted on months ago that you've been getting the message about? Do that and watch the floodgates open, right? So Leanne says, so funny, I am only now realizing after moving just how much the energy of those around me, my neighbors, yes, especially as a lot of them are in drugs, was affecting me. Yeah, exactly right. I'm so clear now and feeling so good. Everything feels so much easier. Oh, honestly, environment is everything. It was like when I moved out here, I felt like I could breathe again, not like through nose and lungs. My physical body was like when I talk about our auras like a sponge, my sponge just let go. It was like it was so significantly different, right? And so when we look at environment, okay, let's do another one for environment with source. So important. So when we have these people around us in our environment and in our energy, so again, we've got source up here. So it's really awesome that you've noticed that difference. And sometimes like we know it, but until we actually act on it, i.e. moving, it's tricky to shift out of it. You know, it really is a environmental shift, right? So, okay, let me get these source people worked out. Okay, so again, source up the top, universe, God, whatever you want to call it. And then we've got all these little people walking around on earth, right? Now, again, this is so interesting. Oh, I just had all these ideas slot in. Let me channel them for you. Let me share them. So, covered in goosebumps. Okay, so let me use your example, Liam. So we're in an environment or a suburb or a town or anything like that. And, you know, everybody's kind of got their own little auras. Okay, maybe they're full of holes, maybe they're whatever. And maybe they've been getting ideas and, you know, they've been blocked too because actually they're not implementing them because they're like, oh, I don't trust myself, or whatever the story is. Like, we've been, as a society, indoctrinated through school for like 12 years or longer, university, beyond. Like, that's the system. That's what we've been growing up. That's the, you know, that's what our society has been growing up into. Now, I've radical unschooled my daughter for a long time because I'm like, this is not the paradigm that we're meant to live in, right? So a lot of people walking around like this. Okay, now to quell the pain of being that disconnected from our true source, and of course there's so many layers into that, drugs are a really common thing, let's say, and there's so many different forms of addictions. You know, we could have alcohol or sex or food or anything like that, right? But let's just use drugs for the moment. Not only does the addiction of choice quell and numb the pain of, so the cows are really, I don't know if you guys can hear them, the cows are really making a noise right now. Cows are deeply about mother healing, which is, funnily enough, I'm out here on this property surrounded by cows. How interesting after my journey, right? Side note. Cows are deeply connected to mother healing. This reconnection is being fed from our true mother. Now you might be like, oh Hannah, but that's the earth. And I'm like, yeah, it could be, right? But if our soul home is a deep connection into divine source, the reconnection of it is feminine. Why? We're opening, we're receiving, we're allowing ourselves to be nourished. It's a very feminine energy, right? When we're not doing that, the pain of that is severe. So severe, it's so painful that a lot of people leave the planet through suicide. Drugs, any pain, any drug of choice, numb that feeling, right? What they also do is they give us a short taste of that connection to source, right? But the drugs and that avenue is very short-lived, and we need more and more and more and more and more and more and more of it to receive that same feeling, right? Now, as again, we've kind of been trained that we need that to be able to survive, if that makes sense. Like, that's the only way. It's a taking energy. Give it to me, give me more, let me ingest more, and then I will feel better, right? Like, outside of ourselves, yeah? And the drugs, like I said, it gives us that instant little connection, but then we need more and more and more to have the same feeling. And then we also are taking, and we're also not able to know what the true connection is. Like, we get so lost down in it that we forget who we are. Why? Because we're also pretty freaking clouded with all this stuff. Now, what did I say before? Darkness attracts more darkness, right? We're implementing that. Now, say for you, for example, over here, Liam, this is you, for example, and you're doing this, you know, spiritual journey, and you're connecting to source and blah, 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 blah. But right next door, you've got all of this. It's a very heavy energy, right? It's a very heavy energy. A disconnected energy is a very heavy energy. Now, by the way, where nobody is ever truly disconnected, it's their conscious awareness that is disconnected, right? So when we actually are doing, you know, the quote unquote right thing, and we're, you know, connecting to source, and we're refilling ourselves and, you know, like filling ourselves up, as I said before on the last piece, we can get to a place where we're not affected by other people's energies, but sometimes it happens, right? It's a thing. Now, the more you're implementing and streaming through and acting on those ideas and taking action immediately and blah, 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 the stronger this becomes, right? The stronger it becomes. But again, in the start, there's a bit of a practice to becoming that strong, yeah? and so that nothing affects us. But when we are in a heavy environment with people who are like addicted to the addiction in a way, right? It can be really tricky. And that's why moving to high vibration places, for example, can really support the connection and what you're here to channel in. So take a look around, like who is in your environment? Who are you not just connecting with online? Who are you speaking to most of the time? What do you know, like check your last 5 text messages. Like who are you connecting with? Like what sort of life do they live? Are they the people you really want to be, like, you know, are they living the life you want to be living, you know, in your life? If not, why are you continuing to talk to them every single day, right? Because it's usually those connections you connect to every single day are the ones that are like, will either pull you down or they will rise you up, lift you up. Yeah. So take a look around at the environment and the people you are hanging around, your neighbors in the energetic vicinity of where you are. Like all of that plays a part in this level of energy. Okay. So yes, we can connect to source and it takes that strength. But the other piece here that I just want to mention is that when people are in this space, okay, when they experience source, I'm going to say for the first time, but it's not the first time, they just had forgotten what it feels like, right? That can be really scary for them. Again, why? Because it's new, it's a new paradigm, it's different. It breaks all their current reality patterns that are like, total like mind-boggling, reality shifting like spaces, right? And they kind of close up again to it. Why? Because it's new. Crown chakra, new paradigm, right? Letting in light, ooh, new frequency, new energy. It feels different. It rocks the foundations of everything that they've known to date. Okay. Now it's so interesting. The message that came through earlier today, when I was getting ready, is like, there's a fight for the crown. There's a fight for the crown at the moment, right? On a galactic level. I'm the king. No, I'm the king. No, I'm the king. No, it's this way. No, we need to do this system. No, this system's better, right? It's a fight for the crown. It's a fight for the crown. If there's a fight for the crown, we're here. And I feel as maybe a galactic race, and I'm not talking about humans per se, almost where we're at in a consciousness level. Like, yeah, there's some people that are highly evolved on the planet, but on a like kind of global collective, we're still kind of here. Because we all want this. Everybody wants this, and everybody actually is already connected to it. But they're so scared to open their conscious awareness to it. They want to fight for the crown, but they're not willing to do the work to shift this darkness out, because it's a big job, right? But I feel soon it's coming. That's why I've said to like all my healers and light workers that I'm training, I'm like, guys, get ready. 2027, it's game on. It seems like a long way away, but in galactic time, that's like a blip, right? We got time to prepare, that means, in our 3D reality. So let me have a look here. Hey Kelly, and Sean's back. So Tammy says, as I have been going through my spiritual awakening, my family seem to be slowly coming along with me. Yes, awesome. Yes, yeah. And that's because when we do get this level of strength, right? When we get this level of strength and we can hold it, yeah, we get affected at times. When we can hold it, this also becomes stronger and ripples out, because, you know, like what happened to this person over here? They might have got jealous, resentful, spiraled down, but then they also shifted back, they connected back to the true source, and then they were living this person's life. Well, the way this, you know, what they were jealous of, right? For example. Now, this here, it's like, this is why they say, you know, like, what's that other saying? Shine bright or whatever, so you give other people permission to shine. Once that person, if they're willing to do the work and shift out the resentment and everything that they spiraled down into, which might have just needed to shift out of their vibration and was a purpose and blah, blah, blah. And then now this person is strong and, you know, in this, like living like this person, well then that person's inspired this person. And that's what I said at the end, we're grateful for it, right? So they do if you can hold that connection, I was going to say hold that ground, it kind of is, hold that ground, hold that connection, we literally are able to inspire others. Like, that's what we do, right? But sometimes they go through this person goes through this process of the jealousy, resentment, all that jazz. But when this person knows that that's a process those people go, we can hold space for that, you know, whether we're connected to them or not, you know, especially if they're in our close vicinity. When we can have that level of awareness and actually hold that ground and continue to do our thing, we know that they're shifting, and it's our also space holding that is also helping them shift through that, right? But it's not easy. It does take practice. It does take practice. Tammy says, I've also found some people have suddenly left my life. Yes, because not everybody is ready for that level of connection, right? And some people will leave because they're not ready for that yet. But other people, they will shift out of it, and then they will rise with you, alongside you, for sure. So Joy says, it's many people around these days. I think on my spiritual awakening, I feel very disconnected from many, oddly starting to become happy on my own. Yes, that is definitely a process, right? Where we're like connecting to other people, and then maybe this person has strong boundaries and we can't connect to them like we used to, for example. And that also, right? So we like want to hang around our friends all the time, and then we can't, and this person's like got really strong boundaries, and we go through a process, but then we realize that that makes us stronger to connect to our own source and do our own purpose. And then we do connect with this person and we catch up or whatever, and it's actually like better than what it was, because we've both got our strong boundaries and we're both doing our work, and the whole vibration has shifted in the relationship. So relationships can shift, grow, and change, but it takes two people willing to do the work, and also individually to have strong boundaries to be able to hold that vibration, that light, and focus and make this your highest priority, right? If you make this highest priority, everything else shifts, yeah? So, and then you become happy on your own, and then when we're happy on our own, for example, we're emitting an even stronger vibration of happy on our own, because we're so connected to source, and that's our friend, that's our lifeblood, that's our food, so to speak. And then we also start to attract other people who are happier on our own. And as I said, the relationships are higher, they're a higher vibration, they're a stronger vibration. Does that make sense? So Tammy says, yes, people will do that when they see the change. Yes, definitely. Yes, makes a lot of sense. We need to uplift everyone to share that crown. Yes, exactly. And this is a thing where, you know, like this person gets judged as being selfish or rude, or what's other words? Shouldn't be doing that. It's like this person can cop a lot when they first start putting these strong boundaries in place, right? But when we know the truth of here, and again, we're holding space, these people will either shift and rise up or shift out, as we've just been experiencing and discussing, right? And so when we can focus and make this our highest priority ever, we're sharing the crown, because what we're ultimately doing is just sharing the idea and concept energetically with the person that, hey, if you do this too, we're going to rise to the same. Yeah, but sometimes it's not an easy process, right? Sometimes it can take a good 12 months, 2 years to like recalibrate into that space, especially if we're coming, you know, on our spiritual awakening and it's new to us, or we're like the boundary implementing is new to us, right? And we're actually channeling that information through, like it can take some time, and that tests us in a way of our strong truth boundaries, and we come into that place where we're happy on our own, and then almost like a magnet, the right people come, because we're holding that vibration and we're emitting a different frequency. We're not emitting a lower, jealous, empty space. We're trying to connect to other people just because the only reason we're trying to connect to other people is because we haven't connected to our own source. And when we're connected to our own source, we act like a magnet, and everything shifts into our reality, because we're also implementing those ideas, which are the answers to our prayers, which are the support. So if you're not implementing the ideas, the first thing when you're feeling off, down, low, whatever it is, it's like, what idea didn't I implement that my intuition has been nagging at me to do? Watch the energy shift. Yeah, brings you alive. Yeah. So Tammy says, oh, here we go. They are saying that I'm selfish and self-centered. I'm not either of those things. I must have been picking that up. That's exactly that, right? What I've just shared there. So interesting. So Tammy says, it was when I began holding stronger boundaries that people started leaving and getting mad at you. Yeah. Why? Why do people get mad at you like that? Because you're not letting them feed off you anymore. Okay. So what happens here is, like, you know, before you get to this really strong place, for example, right? I know this is a different diagram ultimately, but that core, that person is like, you know, connecting and your friends and always hanging out, and then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, like you're growing and shifting, and so you go through a radical shift. You do this, then you like almost cut off from that person in a way, right? Set strong boundaries, yeah? And they get mad at you simply because you're not feeding them anymore. Yeah, so that person was actually feeding through you, and that's where it can be really draining when we have these draining friendships and relationships around and we're not acting on our intuition to leave or to do whatever, right? And so when we have these friendships, they actually connect to source through us. And when we start putting in strong boundaries and we're like, actually, I need to do this thing and I've been guided to step away and blah, 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 they will get mad because you've cut off their food source. Yeah, interesting on a global level, right? You've cut off their food source, they will get mad. Now, either, like I said, that person will learn to connect to source themselves, or they will not. Yeah, they will stay in this place where they're like dragging off other beings, entities, drugs, whatever you want to call it, whatever addiction. Or that person will go through a process, do the work, and shift and connect up to their own source. Again, it could be a couple of years of that. It's not easy, but the right people will stay and the right people will come if you continue to do the thing you're being called to do, right? But yeah, it's not easy. Definitely not. And that's why a lot of people go back. So a lot of people go back. Here's the catch, right? A lot of people will go back into this space because they feel guilty. They feel guilty that they're not supporting that person in whatever way, shape, or form. You either act out of guilt. I was going to write a blog on that the other day, actually. The things that happen when I act out of guilt, everything goes wrong, right? Because what happens when we're acting out of guilt ultimately is we're cutting off from the true source, and we're like, ugh, and guilt's very heavy vibration, and we're like tuning back into this person and making them our higher power. So we not only like drop, but we also take on all their shit, and we're like, ugh, and then the cycle perpetuates, right? It could be any relationship, could be an intimate relationship, could be a business relationship, could be any sort of relationship, friendship, right? So yeah, guilt, we don't want to act out of guilt. Now, when we start setting boundaries to start with, we will feel guilty, like that is a thing, right? And what we need to do is sit with the guilt, allow the guilt to be there, but don't act on the guilt, and transform the guilt and continue to do that thing, right? And then soon it will be easy to say no without any guilt. Right? And then we've stepped into a whole new paradigm, which is what the crown chakra is all about, right? We shift realities with the crown, yeah, but it's not easy. So Kelly says, as I've done this, I'm seeing my daughter do this, unfriending people. Yes, I've seen that too. It's amazing, right? Yes, it's been about 2 years for me. Yeah, definitely. It does take time in this reality right now. Even though we can make it go faster and stuff, you know, when we're first waking up or people are first starting to really do the spiritual work, not just connect and allow it to stream through and burn out and everything, when we start implementing boundaries and actually embodying that level of light frequency, it does take a recalibration time, like there is, and your whole reality shifts. Like that's crown chakra, that's spiritual awakening. That's why just before I said, healers, light workers, get your businesses ready, get everything ready and organized. 2027, it's game on for people like us. And as I said, I'm like, it seems like a way away, but it's only a blip in the galactic time. But also, what the world and everyone is currently going through globally, it's going to take them a little bit to, you know, get to this point where where people are not wanting to be in this anymore, right? There's some of us over here, we look at this on a galactic scale, global scale, majority of the world's like this, unconscious, for example, right? There's a lot of us here, right? And there's a lot of us here that are also stepping into here, yeah? So it's like almost like a 3-stage process right now, okay? And as we just described and went through this whole process, this takes a little bit to get there from this. It's almost like 3, 2, 1, right? And then this happens in between, yeah, of that. So on a global scale, we're like moving through that, yeah? I'll talk about the crystalline in a second. Same here, yes. So Kelly says, my mom and I got into a heated discussion last night and I really had to stand my ground. It was uncomfortable for her and I saying I should stop being so mad and asking why I'm so mad. And I shared what I'm no longer wanted to tolerate, big shifts. It was uncomfortable, but I said what I did and I feel a whole nother level in my world and disconnecting to certain lower energies between her and I. Exactly right. And that is the breakaway of this. Yeah, that is the breakaway of this. It is not easy to speak your truth. It is not easy to stand your ground. And that is why a lot of society and all this mandatory vaccines and all that jazz, that's why a lot of us are getting, like, a lot of us are almost like in disbelief, like, are you guys still believing this shit? Like, in a way, right? Because they're here. And because it's this, like, do you know what I mean? This, you know, when we can see where people are at from this place and hold space for them as they transition and shift, what happens? They eventually do. It's going to take some time, right? I'd like it to snap overnight, and I'd like it to be in a quantum field in this current reality that we're in right now. But right now, it's, yeah, maybe it's shifting into that. Maybe in December 21st, 2020, like everyone's saying, it's going to be a magical shift. Like, yeah, I do believe there's a big wave of consciousness coming in and a huge high frequency, because back in June this year, when the being came through and gave me an update on the global live, you know, prediction thing, he did say, like, around that, he actually said Christmas, New Year, and I was like, there's going to be a really high frequency. It's like, I can see it. It's like this blue light, like a not like a dark indigo. It's like almost like a platinum blue light, but more blue than platinum, is like just going to like stream in. Like, at the moment, there's a really high frequency coming in, and if we can really implement the ideas, this is the source we're tapping into, right? And this leads into the crystalline activation and the crystalline codes, right? Because this source frequency is, you know, like when we're moving as a collective, as a galactic collective, as a bigger solar system, it's bigger than us on this planet Earth, right? As we are actually like waking up, because we're in ascension now, like we're not going down into the darkness anymore. And that's why there's so much darkness on the planet, because the darkness surfaces to become conscious, right? And in that consciousness, it transforms. So when we actually look at what's on the planet now, there's a really high frequency, right? There's a lot of dark stuff going on. There's a lot of stuff that we're like, I can't believe this is going on the planet, right? But it's always been going on, but now we're conscious of it. Now, in that consciousness is the transformation, is the shift. But what you also have to be so conscious of, guys, is that there might be a lot of darkness on the planet, but also there's a really high frequency on the planet, and it depends which one you're tapping into, right? You might drop down into this example that we gave in the start, right? You might drop down into the jealous, resentful, didn't act on it. What the hell? I knew it. I knew that, right? But if you can pull yourself back up, this is the crystalline grid, like activation, like all those activations over all these years that everyone's been doing the work. It's almost like it's at peak. And I keep saying the past few weeks, I'm like, we're at a tipping point. We're about to tip, right? Maybe that's what December 21st is like. And so the being gave me, I was like, Christmas, New Year is when it's going to be like this high frequency, like beaming in through the planet or whatever, right? And it's so interesting that in that, is it South Atlantic Ocean, like that magnetic field is opened up, right? And so, and people are saying the Earth's splitting in two and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, I feel like that's the consciousness, right? But it's allowing a super high frequency to come in because we have ascended and moved into a specific space in the galactic universe or something, right? Like we're shifting, like we're moving, we're always constantly moving, right? And because of all the grid activations and everything everyone's been doing, we've shifted. Yeah, like we've moved, yeah? And now it's easier to connect to the high frequency, okay? So again, when you are spiraling down and you're like, this isn't me, this isn't what I usually do, like ask yourself, what is the ideas that I've been getting that I haven't been implementing, right? And that will fast return you to the true source, okay? Because when we can, and this is like taking it another level, but the crown chakra is deeply connected to the brain. Okay, like the crown chakra is at the brain. Now, a lot of people are aware of the mind control, that's what they're using to control humanity, for example, right? Media, technology, all this stuff, okay? There's so many different factors to it, but the main point that I want to share about this is the crown chakra is connected to the brain. Now, you know the story, we're only using, what, 1/5 of our brain and everything else is shut down and blah, 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 blah. When we connect it back to that crystalline grid, we have the energetic technology, we have the intuitive technology to reconnect the truth of our brain to our whole brain, to connect to that crystalline grid, the code, the pure source. Like it cannot be contained, and that's what they're trying to do, is contain it, right? And like harvest it and all that. So you can't do it. Like ultimately you can't do it. The only way you're really going to experience that and harvest it is to connect to it yourself. Okay, and like I said, if there's enough of us doing this, we're going to pull the ones up, and the other ones who are not are simply going to disappear. And this is where I feel like that split in the magnetic atmosphere or whatever is going on. I feel like that's actually what it is. It's not like the Earth's going to split in two. It's literally like we're going to vibrate away, or I don't even know. Like it's tricky to describe. Like the ones that are dying, for example, are the ones that can't stay in this higher vibration. So, you know, and I know I'm digressing a little bit, but it's really important here that, you know, for Epstein, for example, you know, got killed. Oh, sorry, I think he suicided, right? If he is who everyone says he was, that's a huge container of darkness that is no longer in a physical form on our planet. The more of us that connect to this, the more this vibration just cannot stay on the planet anymore. And it's interesting that a lot of us have moved, like just in my little tribe, for example, away from stuff after so long that we weren't able to, for whatever reason. And now we're actually moving physically to higher vibrations as well. It's kind of significant, right? So when we look at the crystalline activation, right? And like I said, like they'll be released in the coming days, guys, but these crystalline activations are something I've never released before. Like I said, the third eye one's there, and I'll share that later this afternoon so you guys can experience it and get a taste. And that's just the third eye. There's ones that have channeled through for each of these chakras. This is connecting to this true source. Right, now these started coming through to me in, well, November last year. The third eye chakra one came through. Like I said, I'll share that later. It's free. You can taste test that one, for example. These ones have been channeling through all this year. And I'm like, okay, can I just have a house so I can actually ground and finish this? And now I'm here and I'm like, wow, I had to go through all of that myself and clear that level of darkness to be able to actually receive this, to be able to channel that through for you guys. Like, I'm like, wow, right? And so when we can also know that as we are holding space, right, we get in this vibration and this container and blah, blah, blah. And as we are holding space for people to shift through this, yeah, and into this space, we are also doing this for ourselves, right? We are also holding space for ourselves whilst we shift through this. Because as we realize this level of darkness, right, and this level of disconnection or unconsciousness of the true connection, right, which is what's happening now. We're reconnecting back to the true source, the crystalline codes, right? As we do that, we're able to hold that high vibration, and so that everything's even shifting more rapidly. Now, I always keep saying, guys, like, you know, like this, the crown chakra is deeply connected to our thoughts, right? So the mindset shift that comes, and this is a whole new paradigm that comes in, right? It's the crown chakra is a whole new paradigm of thinking. It's a whole new thing, and that's why a lot of our realities have been blown out of the water recently. We're just like, oh my gosh, why? Because our whole solar system galaxy is like, it's shifted, and we're now in this ascension process, which is, you can't stop that, right? You can't stop consciousness awakening. You can't stop ascension. Like, they can try, but honestly, you can't. You get in a certain frequency and stuff has literally dies. It cannot stay in the high vibration. If it's not willing to transform, it just cannot stay in this vibration. Like, it will disappear in front of your eyes, literally, right? So if relationships start to disintegrate and like let them go, right? But on a global scale, we're also seeing that as well. Like, we're just shifting away from things that don't resonate with us anymore. We're like, that used to fill my soul, and now I know what I know about that stuff, and that does not resonate with me anymore. What is happening? We're connecting to the true source. Yeah? To recognize that. Yeah? And so, yeah, when we do put those boundaries in place, we don't resonate with those energies anymore. We're not being fed by those energies anymore. Like, that doesn't feel good anymore, because we also know what does feel good, and we're choosing this over that anymore, right? Yeah. All right, so Tammy says, I started noticing that when I was around my neighbor, I would start to get irritated by her actions. She was constantly acting like she knew me, but I have changed. And this is the thing, if people don't evolve with us, and, you know, it might take them a while, they still view us as this person. They haven't had this new vision come in yet. They don't actually see you as you. Sometimes they will, sometimes it takes time, and sometimes it takes a conscious conversation to go, you know what, like, I'm not that person anymore. Can you please stop viewing me as that? Can you see me as who I am today? Like, sometimes it takes a, you know, conversation like that, but sometimes they also never see that too. So Kelly says, oh my God, guilt. That's what it was about. I told mum I chose not to feel guilty. Yeah. And that's where we really shift. When we stop choosing out of guilt, whew, hello, paradigm shift gets embodied, right? Yeah. Yes, getting ready. Leanne says, love this, Hannah. Thank you for doing this. Definitely find myself in the crown energy. Yes, yeah. And over this next week, I'm going to release blogs and stuff about the crown chakra. I may or may not do another live stream about the crown. We'll see what flows through for sure. Yes, lots of head nods over here. Yes. Jenny says, thanks for the reminder to stay focused. Yeah, super powerful. Yeah, super powerful. And when we can, you know that this is what's going on in any world stuff, like, even if we get pulled down rabbit holes, we're like, ooh, who's pulling us in an energetic way, right? It might be literally cords that need to be cut, cords that are cut from old paradigms. It might be like releasing paradigm structures, like all of that sort of thing. So yeah, it's big. Tammy says, is that why all of the ugly is becoming known and seen? Yeah, because a lot of us are holding this light now. And when a lot of us also hold this light, these boundaries or whatever, we also have the capacity to face and actually see the truth of this. Because as I said, like, it's been going on for how long on the planet? Friggin' eons. And a lot of us are only seeing it now. Why? Because we can have the capacity to hold it. Because if you can imagine, right, say, let's just take Leanne out of the picture for now, but say like this person's here doing this and they're like, yeah, it's amazing. And then like they start seeing this level of darkness and they're like, oh, like sometimes again, it can be too much, right? That little taste can be too much and they're like, oh, it's too painful. And this is too normal for them. So they'll stay here. Like it is a conscious choice. But when we are really moving and doing the work, which so many of us have been doing, that's the 2012 shift, right? We're like, okay, it's time. Ascension process is here. A lot of us are choosing this now. So yeah. Yes, you can put notifications on for sure if you go to my page, and there'll be like the little drop down box along the top of the page somewhere, or the 3 little dots or something, and it can say see first or get notified. You can, just click that little button and switch it on. Yes, no worries, Doreen. Watch the replay, it will be here. So Tammy says, I'm with you, questioning every single thing, verify everything. Yeah, where is it coming from? Right? Connect to your true source. Okay, so something else I just want to say to guys with this is, even though, and this might be a little bit confusing, but let's just tap it in with this, right? So even though you might be feeling like you're receiving like high vibration light and, really tapping into a high source, check in that it is of 100% crystalline, like beyond crystalline, it's like, because a crystalline is a structure that it can be held in, it's beyond that. Yeah, it's beyond the sacred geometry. It's beyond the atomic level, right? It's beyond that. Yeah, check in with that, right? Because there's a lot of beings, even from higher dimensions, that feel really good, but are they of the higher source? Are they coming from divine service? Right? So important to also check that, right? Especially if you're like, yeah, this is good, but then something feels off. It's like, well, trust that, right? With everything I've just shared here about the people, right? About the people, you could also take everything I've shared about the people as also people in the spirit world. Yeah? Also people in the spirit world. So when you're doing this and you start sensing beings around or something, and maybe you've been receiving guidance from a being for a long time, and then all of a sudden you realize all this stuff and you're like, whoa, hang on a sec, boundaries are stronger also in the spirit world now. This whole experience might happen with that. Yeah. You know how I always say, like, when a person passes over, it's not like there's some magical angel that is like all knowing now. Like, that person is exactly the same as when they were still alive. They have the same personality traits. They have the same consciousness level. They have the same thing. They might just be able to see the truth a bit more because they're not filtered by like the human ego sort of thing. Like, that's kind of gone. So they can see the truth, and they're feeling guilty about things. Now, if they don't understand the guilt process, they will be acting out of guilt too and trying to fix everything that they fucked up, for example, or they, made wrong or hurt you. And they can be acting from the guilt, and it can be very unconscious too. Like, they don't know they're doing that. They just feel bad and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that when I was alive, sort of thing. So it can be hanging around. So that's why boundaries in the spirit world is really strong. It's so interesting. We're talking about starting to move into mediumship. Oh, there's the third eye chakra, right? Yes, okay. Moving very soon. Yes, so awesome. Third eye meditation. Yes, that's coming. Yes. Alina says a lot of people died too this year. I feel like the people that couldn't shift to a higher self. Yeah. And it's so interesting as well. Like, the other thing that's been coming through in a lot of my distance healings with people and working with one-on-one with clients has been like this similar message. And this has been in my awareness actually the past week really strongly. And I feel it's part of the paradigm shift, right? You know how like this recycling around and we have all these past lives and it's this trauma and blah, 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 blah. It's always like traumatic. A lot of the healings and stuff, like I've been literally saying, I'm like, this is the last lifetime that you will go through this with this person. Like, a lot of souls that have had zillions of past lives, it is literally like, now is just like, time to, like, you don't have to repeat this karmic cycle anymore. Like, you've done the work, you've shifted through a lot, and now it's like you're done. Like, you know what I mean? And sometimes that can be sad for people when we go through a big grief process about that, but there's literally a big paradigm shift. And if we're really shifting through, it's kind of like, well, those people might shift to a higher self, to a higher vibration and connect, and they might choose not to, and that's also sad, right? But it's also because you're doing the work. You don't have to repeat those karmic cycles anymore. Now, that person might need to still repeat karmic cycles with somebody else to wake up to a certain level, perhaps. Or they might also get the message and shift too. They'll be like, you know what? I'm actually done with this repetitive cyclic space, and I'm also going to choose to shift. Yeah? So yes, definitely for that. So Kelly says, this whole thing is giving me body shivers. I'm cold, but I'm not cold, if that makes sense. Yes. Yeah, I just got cold too. I just put my jacket on. It was like this whole new shift through. And I actually was remembering yesterday, I jumped in the pool and I was all good for a while, and then I got cold and I was like, hey, this cold's good. And like, it dropped into when I was down south and being in the cold, and it, like, the cold shifts out the trauma. I really get that so strongly, like the cold shifts out that yang invasive, the cold shifts out the yang invasive stuff. So when we're shifting these boundaries, right, and connecting to that higher source, that invasive energy doesn't need to come in anymore. And in the cold, it takes the heat out, takes the attack out. It's kind of interesting that we just got cold as we were talking about that, right? So Tammy says, I've been experiencing old karmic energy that I've had to work through. Really painful lessons I just have had to relearn. Yeah. And we can take the gift and not repeat the cycle anymore. My eyes look green now. That's interesting. Yeah. Alina says, yes, I was always doing things because I felt bad or guilty for someone. Yeah, when we shift out of that, that's when our life really changes in a big, big way. And you hated doing it. Yeah, and so we build up a resentment, and then we're just like, is it their resentment? Is it our resentment? You know, like carrying it across and absorbing all their shit, and like then we get disconnected and then we spiral down. Like, yeah, so it's awesome. That's so amazing, Joy, that your amethyst has arrived recently. I remember that now. So interesting. Of course, I didn't click on that when you showed me. And your cacao arrived too. Yes, whole new paradigm shift. It's so good. Love that. Opening up. Terry says, thank you for the reminder. Found myself stuck lately. Reminder to get back on track. Yeah. What haven't you taken action on? It's very simple. Very simple. How do I know if they are divine love? Well, you can feel it, right? And you can ask them, you know, like, are you of divine service? Right? And they'll be like, you know, and what's the magic number? It's the magic number 3, right? Always ask them, you know, like, ask them repetitively. You know, are you of 100% light? Are you of 100% light? Are you of 100% light? Keep going. Are you of 100% light? Right? They cannot stay around that vibration if they are lying. You know what it's like? You know when you ask somebody a question and you know they're lying, and you hold that ground and you know they're lying, what happens? They get really uncomfortable. They forget their words. They forget what they're saying. They might get mad at you as well, right? Same thing in spirit world. You can know when it's off, right? So, and you need help to distinguish. Well, you have Trust Intuition course at your fingertips, Tabitha. If you feel something is off, even if you like it, yes. And that is the tricky part. Like, oh, but this was so beautiful and sweet and so like loving, and it made me feel good, and like, but we know deep down it's not right. Because what are we doing? We are feeding off that person, right? We're feeding off them. We know it's not right, but it still feels good. But it's a whole paradigm shift to connect to our own source, not feed off other people or from people in the spirit world. And what I mean by that is because when we connect to the true source, we don't even need angels to make us feel better. Because we are the angel. We are the true connection. We don't need that reflection outside of ourselves. Because even though it's an angel, for example, in the spirit world, God love the angels. Nothing bad against them. But our next step in our evolution of consciousness, in our empowerment of self and our divine soul and our awakening, whatever you want to call it, is that we don't even reach outside in the spirit world to feel better. We're connecting directly to source ourselves. We don't even need angels to connect. We are the angel. We are the empowerment. We are the light, not let's breathe the light in. Even though that's a process to get there, we can just shift automatically to that. So yeah, 100% Alina. Kelly says, yes, I've made stronger boundaries with past on people. Mediumship is coming in strong. Yeah, it's so interesting. Like the past 24 hours, I've been seeing all these people walking around, and I'm like, oh, the crown's activated, already moving into the third eye. Mediumship. Interesting, right? Hector says, ups, I thought it was 9. Yes, replay. Yes, it's 8. Cold therapy. Yeah, it's so powerful. That's why people do ice baths. Yes. Kelly said, I drove with all my windows and sunroof completely open with sprinkles of rain. Yeah, it started raining here too. Now you want a cacao drink. Awesome. All right, let me check if I've covered everything for the crown, as I made some notes to make sure. Yes, the purple, recalibration of thoughts. So whilst we can, as a spider dangles off my phone as I'm live streaming, talk about spinning the new web of the paradigm and of the web of thoughts, right? So as we shift and connect, and you know how I was saying, like, we need to recalibrate our vibration, our body, our system to hold a higher level of light, that higher frequency. We're also recalibrating our thoughts to that as well. So sometimes we can be in that negative spiral of thinking, because all of a sudden we've taken our focus off true source and we're like trying, you know, like all that stuff I shared before. That's a particular thought pattern, right? And spiraling into not good enough and blah, blah, blah. It's also a brain retraining. Yeah. So when we're opening up to a complete paradigm shift, we're training ourselves to think differently, as well as the inner work to shift out all the gunk as well. Yeah. Black tourmaline helps as well. Yes. Subject of rain. It's pouring here. Yeah. It's been sprinkling on and off here. And Tammy says, I've been having loads of third eye headaches lately. Yeah, everything's starting to shift through. As we open to source, it's like shifting out that stagnant energy, right? So be mindful over these next several weeks. If you're coming on this chakra journey, notice what weeks you're super present with that chakra, and notice what other weeks you're like completely oblivious to that chakra. You're like, whoa, like I just completely missed that chakra. It's like there might be a closed block there that you need to like open and like build a relationship with the particular chakra. But the new paradigm is, you know, like training yourself to think differently, to receive that high vibration, to implement the ideas, to train yourself to act on those ideas, you know, like journaling around, you know, I'm a person who always acts on my ideas immediately now. I trust my ideas wholeheartedly and I implement them as soon as they come in. Like, you know, like that is a training of a brain rewire, you know, like I am good enough to receive these ideas and actually act on them and create them in my life, you know, like I'm a person who acts fast on the ideas that I receive through my claircognizance, you know, like those sorts of things are a brain retraining and actually able to implement to hold that capacity. So thanks so much for joining, guys, and I really look forward to getting these crystalline activations out to you as well. And keep an eye out, as I said, this week I'll be sharing more about the crown chakra consciousness, and be mindful that this week as we're just talking about moving into the third eye already activated, right? And it might start slipping into ear chakra as well, because as we move closer to third eye week, the ear chakra is going to be activated as well, right? So just being mindful, the third eye is deeply connected to mediumship, dreams. And by the way, really, really important side note I need to mention here is third eye, connected to mediumship, connected to dreams, obviously clairvoyance and so much more, relationships, seeing the truth. Just like we've spoken about boundaries in mediumship and the spirit world, that applies to your dream state as well. As we just get a shakedown of the tree. That applies to your dream state as well, okay? In your dreams, take it exactly the same as you would spirit world in, you know, like spirit in your waking life. Like there's no separation. The dream state is exactly the same. Like, yes, you could take messages and interpret them, but do it with discernment, just like if you're receiving an intuitive message in waking life. Been getting that message really strong the past week. So as we move into this ascension process or whatever's happening in the world, and people are waking up on a conscious level and questioning things, the next kind of protocol for them to try and infiltrate us through the dream state. So, and you know, and again, that's also been going on for a long time, but more so the past week I've been getting the message to really be mindful of that. So yeah, use your same level of discernment in your dream state as you would in your waking state with any communications you have with spirits or anything. Yeah, Alina, yeah, weird dream actually, and I share it. Did you mean you want to share it here, or we can share it on WhatsApp? Yeah, you're so welcome, Kelly. Very, very welcome. So yeah, so be mindful of the dreams and discerning any messages that you receive, connecting, knowing that you are the higher power. You are, you know, that direct connection, that direct line. You don't need anybody else. And this is where we start to really take back our power as the human collective and being able to rise back to the truth of who we are. So yeah. All right, so let's have a quick look at this dream interpretation. Yeah, okay, so cars, car crash and falling into water. Dogs, so dogs are representative of unconditional love. Water is emotions. Car is always about your body. It's like your vehicle and it's your body. So how is your body representative of that? And it's interesting, the girl was like, sorry, but I'm leaving. She didn't even help her friend or the dogs. That's interesting, right? So when we're talking about guilt and what we've just talked about, like recently, it's kind of like, do we do things out of guilt, or are we judging that person now because they're taking care of themselves? Like, you know what I mean? Like those sort of aspects would be what I'd be deciphering in that dream. And then also into the body of water, it's like, okay, that person's out of here. I'm not even gonna be in this water. I'm gone. Like, I'm not even gonna feel my emotions. I'm out of here. Like, I don't care about it. You know, it could be that extreme as well. You know, in the car, the vehicle crashing into the emotions, it's kind of like, is that flood of emotions going to open soon? And the dogs, the unconditional love, like, you know, looking at that of the emotions and the vehicle, is there unconditional love for the body and what you're holding in there? Are you able to look at that so you don't have to crash into it? Can you open it with love instead? Is the message I'm getting there for that dream. So yeah, looking forward to going deep into the dream state over our next live stream on the third eye. Yeah, drag the other's body out. Yes, and that's the thing of like needing to bring the love with, yeah. So even though you're out of it, still bringing the love into it in a way. Yeah. All right, guys, I'm gonna love you and leave you, and I look forward to staying into our deep awareness, claircognizance, acting on that and seeing the truth about where we need to place our time, our energy, our focus. Yeah, seeing the truth of being able to channel that direct message. Yeah, I love you guys. See you very soon.